the Quartermaster, one of my favorite classes, and one of the first classes I unlocked back in the day when I was playing Gloomhaven for the first time, where I really felt overpowered and I just loved it. There's so many cool things you can do with this guide, so I am so excited today to bring you this guide. The Quartermaster only has a hand size of 9, but he's got a bunch of cards that can help extend his life, and he can extend his life indefinitely. Yes, he can go for infinite turns. We'll talk about that in a little bit, just exactly how that works. And he's also got a bunch of persistent losses. And so we're going to talk about which losses you take based upon which build paths you're going down and exactly how you're playing the Quartermaster, so that you don't go all kid in a candy store and end up with all these cool looking persistent losses and then you can't play them all because you're losing too many cards. Also, when you're the Quartermaster, you're going to be looting a lot. And the Quartermaster, the name doesn't sound that exciting, but playing him is exciting and he's greedy. And I actually recommend that you play the Quartermaster selfishly, but make sure that you are on the good side of all the people you play with. Bring brownies to every game. Maybe bring a Slurpee. Offer to do their homework. Maybe babysit for them if they have children. What I'm saying here is people are going to get annoyed at you because you are very good at looting. Really, unless there's a scoundrel around, people are going to have a very tough time stopping you from taking all the gold. So make sure you're on the good side of everybody there, especially if you don't own the game, because you may not get invited back. I'm just joking around a little bit here, but the Quartermaster does do a ton of looting, and it actually may rub some people wrong. I keep talking about how powerful the Quartermaster is, how much I love him, and you may not have exactly the same experience if you're at low prosperity levels and you're a low level Quartermaster, because the Quartermaster really relies on items, and items are a separate power curve from your level. If you have a ton of items, it makes whatever level you're at actually much more powerful in relation to the scenario level. So we're going to talk about how you accelerate that power curve so that you're doing very cool things in a very short period of time. Okay, let's talk about infinite turns. Yes, you can go infinite turns with the Quartermaster and do whatever you want. You know, you can go and pretend that you've got all this XP and level yourself up instantly from 1 to 9, etc. But I would recommend that you don't do that. Couple of reasons. One, it's just cheesy. I mean, I'm a bit of a min-maxer. I like, you know, working with builds and theory crafting. That's why I started this YouTube channel. But, you know, cheating to that sort of level, and it's not actually cheating because the cards are the cards. But, you know, exploiting it to that level is going to make it so that you're not having that much fun, I don't think. And also, anyone you're playing with, if you're level 9 and they're level 1, it's not going to be very fun for them because you're going to be this rock star and they're just basically going to be the roadies, you know, packing your speakers around, you know, doing stuff like that, you know, fixing the bus's spare tire. So I recommend that you don't go infinite. But you can use this combo to extend some turns when you need to. And also when you do go infinite, let's say you do go infinite and you power level, you're actually quite weak compared to your scenario levels because you haven't gotten any items. And items are a separate power curve outside of leveling, and they're an addition to leveling. So when you've got 10 items in your level 9 versus a level 9 with no items, there is a drastic difference in power. And so by, you know, going infinite and gathering up all that XP, you're actually making life harder on yourself. And if that's something you want to do, then, you know, by all means go ahead. But I think most people know this. The combo is just Scroll of Recall with a Minor Stam. And depending on whether you're playing the old Minor Stam rules or the new Minor Stam rules, where, you know, a Minor Stam is only recover 1 discard in the new rules, and it's recover 2 under the old rules, that'll kind of change the mileage you get out of this. But hope that helps you to understand it a little bit better. And hey, if you want a power level and you think that's fun, by all means, just, you know, heed my warnings if you're playing with other people, because it can make it unfun for them. And we're all here just to have some fun. Okay, we're going to start out with Crippling Bow. Crippling Bow, there's not a lot to say. It's a pretty just standard utility card. Top is attack 3, range 3, 1 XP. That's going to be decent for you. It's not going to scale well though, but early on, it's going to be an okay card when you're out of melee range. And then the bottom attack 1 range for immobilize, actually pretty good. This is going to be quite useful for keeping those tough elite melee enemies right where they belong, and that's somewhere they can't hit you. Reserved energy. The top is extremely powerful. Extreme's a little strong. It's quite powerful, but only when you've got higher level gear, you got a higher prosperity level, you have more items. Using this on somebody, if they've got 5-6 items and they're good items that are spend items and refreshing, this is really going to be a nice play when you're in a room and you've mopped up all the monsters before you go into the next room, so they don't have to long rest and spend a whole turn. Or, you know, if there's just some downtime, quite good. At lower prosperity levels and with less items, definitely not nearly as good. You don't want to spend this to get back 1 pair of boots or something like that. That's not going to be a great turn for you. Initiative, good for going late. And then the bottom move 4, you know, just good utility. Quartermaster has quite good movement, and so this is going to fit right in with our movement plans. Restock. The top is good, but it's much better at higher player counts. If you've got 2 players, yeah, you're probably not going to play this. It also pairs really well with some classes, the Lightning Bolt class, and there won't be any spoilers here. That's not even the real name. We're not going to talk about it in any detail, but you know, some classes, let's say, they can use their items to much greater effect than other classes. And so, you know, for a class like that, it's going to be really helpful to refresh one of their consumed items. But, you know, mostly only use this if you're with, you know, 3 other allies. And then attack 3 bottom, great for burst damage when you're just going to stand there and you need to take an enemy out with a bottom and a top attack. Impaling Spear. The top is a nice multi-target attack, and if you use the bottom of Sharpening Kit, this is an easy combo when you're standing still to output, you know, 4 damage to 2 separate enemies, and you get an experience. So really good, solid card. You're probably going to use it through a decent amount of your journey, and at low levels, it's going to be very good. The initiative at 48, gross, but you've got some other decent initiative cards to either go fast or late. So, you know, you just got to pair it with something else. You're basically never going to use the initiative on this unless you're forced into it. And then the bottom 4, good solid move again to reposition yourself. Proficiency. The top is pretty decent. I think you probably have other better losses, but let's just talk about how it actually works. And I'll give you an example here. So Hastened Step. So you're going to attack, then move, then attack. If you use boots on this, it's going to apply to the attack action. So an action is half of a card. So what I'm saying is the item doesn't have to directly modify the attack to be counted for the +1 to the entire attack action. That one's a bit murky. Hopefully that helps you decide when you're actually going to be able to add +1 to the attack action. And if you're using items a lot, this can actually add up to a lot of damage over a scenario. Then the move 3, that's fine. I mean, Quartermaster's pretty mobile. Move 3 is mid-tier, but still good enough to play. Cleaving Axe. At very low levels, this is going to be a solid, you know, 4 to 6 damage depending on how many enemies you hit, so definitely going to be worth it. It does run out of steam at later levels. However, we're going to pair this with an item, and because the Quartermaster can get back items so easily, this card actually becomes very powerful when paired with a couple different items. We'll talk about that later on. And then the bottom move 4. Move 4 is pretty good. Oversized Pack. The card that is going to cause some friction between you and the other people you're playing with. I love this card though. It's a really interesting card because at lower levels with not many items, the bottom is kind of, it's not really worth it. But what this card does do is it allows you to loot 2, and it's going to allow you to, you know, get a lot of money. And you're going to essentially use this card to get a lot of money to power up how many items you have. And then once you do, The bottom is actually really good. If you can get back, 4 consumed items, 5 consumed items, stuff like that, this card is going to be massive for you, and it's going to allow you to be extremely powerful. So go ahead, take that loot, get all the money, and then buy a bunch of items. Iron Bulwark. The top, decent attack. I like muddling guys so that, if you're staying in the pocket, you're staying in the fray, that, it's basically 1 damage mitigation from anyone that's muddled. On average, can go up and down, but on average, pretty close to 1 damage. And then shield 1, affect self and all adjacent allies. Remember, this is an aura card. They must be adjacent to you when they get attacked. So they can't just be adjacent when you actually play the card. They've got to be adjacent to you when the attack happens. And that means that they can actually go after you, but before the monsters, and move in close, and they're still going to get that effect. This card is just right for an enhancement, so stick with me. We'll talk about that later. This is a pretty good card though. Adding shield 1 to everybody, it can be pretty handy. You just have to pay attention to the positioning. Hastened Step. Great card, great flexibility. Attack 2, move 1, attack 2 is going to be really nice. If you have Sharpening Kit out, that's attack 3, move 1, attack 3. At level 1, that's going to be fantastic for you. Initiative, fairly decent at 26. And then the move 5, move 5 is really good. Even for the Quartermaster, it's going to help you move around the battlefield, get properly positioned so you're adjacent to people. Love this card, great card. Don't leave home without it. Scroll of Recall. Top is great flexibility, allows you to get back a consumed small item. And once you're up higher in prosperity and stuff, there's some pretty powerful consumed small items. So good flexibility just, to do whatever you need to do with those small items time and time again. Initiative at 98 is great for when you want to go late. 98 is very, very late. You're going to pretty much assure yourself of going late. The bottom of this card though, not great. Pull 1, range 3, target 3. Not going to be super useful for you. If you have good consumed small items, then take this. But other than that, I would actually leave it at home most of the time. Crushing Hammer. The top is a bit of a... Quartermaster is awesome. Can't have all super amazing cards. You might use this at the end of a scenario in an emergency situation, but I think 99% of the time you're playing this card for the bottom. Move 2, shield 1 at 17 initiative is very good. Great flexibility just to keep, your health high. And you can also enhance the shield. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the enhancements portion. But I really like this card, but just for the bottom. Sharpening Kit. Top is a good strong heal at level 1. The 2 range is a bit annoying though, but still, reasonable flexibility. 23 initiative, pretty good. And then the bottom though is where it gets really good. This is a great card. You're going to be able to add a lot of damage to your party and to yourself by playing this card. And if you've got somebody with you that does AoEs, you're going to be able to, get 3, 4, 5 extra damage out of this card every time you play it. It's really going to help you get past shielded enemies. It's going to do a lot of cool things for you. And remember, again, this is an aura card. So they just have to be within range 2 when they're attacking. They don't have to be within range 2 when you actually play the card. That's all of our starting cards. And I hope you're liking the video so far. If you are, please go ahead, hit that like button. It really helps me out a lot. And go ahead and subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so that when I put out new content, you're notified. And then I've also created another video. I think you're really gonna like it. I've ranked all 22 of the Gloomhaven classes. This includes Jaws of the Lion, and it includes Forgotten Circles. So go and check it out, see where the Quartermaster is ranked, and also see where your favorite classes are ranked within the Gloomhaven universe. At level 2, we've got Reforge, and we've got Bladed Boomerang. Reforge, the top, is going to be very powerful when you're higher prosperity level. I keep saying this a lot, but yeah, when you're higher prosperity level and you're playing with a class who's really maximizing, a consumed item lightning bolt class again, and a bunch of other classes as well. Reforged top is actually going to be really powerful. And even for yourself at low levels, it can be pretty good, but don't overuse it. So let's take Warhammer for example. You're going to use that with Cleaving Axe, and you're going to go ahead and stun 3 enemies. Now next turn you're going to play Reforge, and you're going to get that Warhammer back. That's a bit of a wasted turn, even though you're stunning potentially 3 enemies each time. So what you want to do is you want to use this at the right time. You want to use it when you're moving up to get near a door for the next room, or when you know that your friends are going to be able to mop up the last of the enemies, so that you're not spending a turn when there's a bunch of monsters around, refreshing an item. So it is extremely powerful, but only if you don't overuse it and you fit it into the regular flow of battle. Next, we've got Bladed Boomerang, and the top is decent. I mean, it's equivalent to attack 3 for sure, maybe attack 4 if a monster's around a couple turns, up to attack 5, let's say, getting experience. And then the bottom is nice and flexible to move 2, attack 1, move 2. But I just think that once you get up to certain levels, this level 2 pick is going to be a waste if you take Bladed Boomerang, because I think mostly you're not going to be using it at later levels, and Reforge I think is always going to be useful to you at some point. So I'm taking Reforge almost every single time. At level 3, we've got Scroll of Lightning, we've got Continual Supply. Scroll of Lightning is just going to be a good, solid attack 5 at range 3. It makes an element. You can't go wrong with this. You're going to do a ton of good work with this card. Pretty straightforward. The bottom move 3, push 1. A bit of utility there. Sometimes you're going to be able to push an enemy into a trap or reposition them to your advantage. And then, you do produce elements on both of these, so can be helpful in certain party compositions. And then we've got Continual Supply. If you've got somebody who's really got a good consumable item that's really pairing well, you can't go wrong with Continual Supply, even if you've taken Reforge, because you can actually refresh 2 consumed items in a turn now if, you need to. And that can actually be really powerful. And the thing that's great about Continual Supply is that you don't have to spend a card to do it. So you can attack and move and do all your normal stuff and throw away a discarded card to, give that ally back their consumed item. And if they're using it well, that is going to be extremely powerful. The bottom, recover up to 2 of your lost cards. I don't think you're playing this card very often with this class. This class has a lot of persistent effect losses. It doesn't have a lot of powerful one-shot losses that you would really love to get back and play again. Most are persistent losses. So the bottom of this card, I don't think you're using it hardly at all, but the top is very good. I think you can go either way with this. I'm going to say take Scroll of Lightning most of the time. It's the safe play, but if you've got some good synergy going on, you've got allies that are really using consumable items well, Continual Supply can be an almost game-breaking card. At level 4, we've got Giant Club and we've got Side Pouch. And I think the choice here is going to be based upon what we took at level 3, at least, partially. Giant Club, good solid top attack at 5. Bottom attack 3 muddle is good for burst damage and, for muddling enemies. I like doing that. And then Side Pouch, the top is going to be very powerful when you're higher level and you've got a ton of items. You're going to be able to, refresh a complete item set, which is going to be really nice for somebody. But mainly I think you're playing this card for the bottom and move 3, loot 1. It's going to allow you to move and attack and be effective while you're looting. So if you've taken Scroll of Lightning, I would say take Side Pouch. But if you've taken Continual Supply, you're going to need something to output some damage too. So I would take Giant Club. At level 5, we have Scroll of Judgment and we have Reinforced Steel. Scroll of Judgment top can be quite good against a bunch of shielded enemies. Suffer 2 damage. You're going to be able to output decent damage. If you've got 5 enemies, that's 10 damage. That's going to be worth the loss, especially because it's a suffer. And then the bottom, move to stun, target 1 adjacent enemy. Very good utility, very handy. Unfortunately, this card is at the same level as Reinforced Steel. And Reinforced Steel is magical. It's one of my favorite cards. It's so fun. Hey, would you like advantage every single turn for the rest of your life? Well, if you've got the top and you've got Eagle Eye Goggles, and this is just a, Prosperity level 1 example, Eagle Eye Goggles, you refresh that card every single turn. Every single time you attack, you're going to have advantage. You're never going to miss again. That's pretty awesome. And this is just level 1 examples, or take the Boots of Striding. Add +2 movement every single turn. I mean, this is almost game breaking. It's super fun. It's super powerful. I loved using it. And then the initiative at 12, it's our second fastest initiative. And we actually need some quick initiative. We really need some quick initiative so that we can go first some of the time when we need it. So it helps there as well. And then even the bottom, you can play the Quartermaster a bunch of different ways. And so if you're playing as a tank, Shield 2 affects self and all adjacent allies. Pfft, come on, that is awesome as well. I think I played it more for the top, but depending on your build, that bottom can also be really, really good. I'm taking Reinforced Steel every time. There is absolutely no time I'm ever taking Scroll of Judgment. At level 6, we've got Quiver of Arrows and we've got Catastrophic Bomb. Let's talk Catastrophic Bomb first. So it doesn't look like much damage, but there's a ton of different ways you can pump this up. And because you can refresh items, you can get a lot of work done. So no spoilers here, but let's just say Minor Power Potion and Sharpening Kit, and you have advantage from your goggles. You're getting this up to 4 or 5 damage per, and it's also 1 XP, and you don't lose it. And let's talk about perks quickly, because I think just talking about this will help you, realize the power of this card. So let's say you use a Minor Power Potion, and you've taken some perks that allow you to refresh items. Now you're going to pull attack modifiers each time for each portion of the attack. And on your first monster, you pull a refresh item. Well, you can refresh your power potion and reuse it within the attack action. So on 3 targets, the first attack's going to be at regular power. You refresh the power potion. Second target is going to be at extra +1, and third target's going to be at extra +1. Now you pull another refresh item on the next enemy. Well, the last enemy is going to have 2 power potions worth. I hope that was clear. The point is that the refresh item, you can actually use it within the attack action. The bottom of this is also very powerful. You're seeing the pre-nerf version. This is the first edition version. The new one is suffer 7 damage to do 7 damage to the target area. Still very, very powerful. And then Quiver of Arrows. The top is actually amazing if you're with a strong single target range damage dealer. And so if you are, I actually recommend taking Quiver of Arrows, because if you're with a range damage dealer that's going to do 4 or 5 damage plus every turn to a single target, adding a target to that is going to be massive. And if there's any other effects that they have, those effects are magnified as well, right? You want to poison enemies, etc. Make sure that if you do take Quiver of Arrows, you're prioritizing other move cards, because you're going to need to stay adjacent to somebody a lot of the time. And also make sure that you've got other ranged attacks, because you're going to have to stay in the back with that ranged damage dealer. And so you don't want to be melee heavy and have to stay in the back to add target. You want to be able to attack as well, or do other cool things like refresh consumed items, stuff like that. So make sure when you're taking this card, consider all those things. And then the bottom move 6, I don't think you're ever playing this card for the move. I think you're either taking it for the top because it makes sense for your party composition, or you're taking Catastrophic Bomb. You're almost never taking this for the bottom move 6. At level 7, we have Refreshment and we have Scroll of Blizzards. Refreshment, if you've taken Reinforced Steel, you're not going to want a long rest. Never take this card. And I actually don't think that this card is that great. I don't think that it's powerful enough for this class for a loss. And this is also a double loss card. The bottom, anyone ally may recover all of their discarded cards. Can be powerful in the right situation, but you're going to have a card that has double losses. And so it's going to be, a pain to play early on, because it's just going to be move to or attack to. Scroll of Blizzards, also not loving it a lot. The pattern on this is much harder to hit with than Catastrophic Bomb. And then, but the bottom is good. The immobilize and then move, to me, is much stronger than move and then immobilize. Because what I like to do is go late sometimes, go in, attack, and then go fast with a card like this, immobilize the melee enemies, and then move out. And you can do some really good control that way. So it is in the right order. It's a pretty decent bottom. And then it also produces dark, which can help. I'm taking Scroll of Blizzards over Refreshment, but also if you didn't take Side Pouch, you can definitely go back and take Side Pouch. And then at level 5, you can also go back and get Scroll of Judgment to use that bottom move to stun. I think that's probably going to be better. So, you know, either of those 3 things are going to be good for you. At level 8, we have Fortified Position and we have Portable Ballista. Fortified Position top. In some scenarios, it's actually going to be quite useful if you're getting poisoned a lot, wounded a lot, because you're going to be able to heal all that up without spending any actions. Most of the time, you're probably not going to use it for that, but in that scenario, you can. The initiative on this card is fantastic at 10, and then a move 3 shield 2 self. If you're playing a tank build with this guy and you're meleeing a lot, this is an essential card for you. And then we've got Portable Ballista. The top, the way it's laid out is a pain. You're going to hit 2 or 3 enemies with this. You're rarely going to hit more enemies because of, you know, how strange the pattern is. To me, this card would have made more sense as an attack 5 on 2 targets and then immobilize and wound. Think about shooting a huge, you know, arrow through somebody and pinning them there. I mean, you're definitely going to wound them and, you know, immobilize them. So I think that would have made more sense. And then the bottom, you can ignore all shield values for the rest of your targets. This can be very useful in certain situations against heavily shielded enemies, but I think we've got some other ways to deal with that. And, you know, we can do some cool control stuff to, you know, help stun those enemies for our allies or something along those lines. I take Fortified Position every time if I'm, you know, meleeing a lot. However, if I've taken Quiver of Arrows and I'm in the back and I'm with a ranged damage dealer, you've got to take Portable Ballista here. At level 9, we've got Scroll of Annihilation and we've got Bag of Holding. The top of Bag of Holding, loot 3. Yikes. This card should read for owners of Gloomhaven only, because if you're playing this card, you're not getting invited back. I'm joking around a little bit here, but loot 3 is nasty. Nobody else is going to have a chance to get loot if you can loot 3. And then the bottom of this card, if you're at high prosperity levels, this can be very good for, you know, burst item, you know, restoration, let's call it, so that everybody can reuse all their items again. So if you do this before the last room, it can actually be very, very strong. Scroll of Annihilation top, you're going to be able to kill a normal or elite enemy. Almost always, you're going to have to wait right till the very end of the room to use the top of this, which is fine because the bottom is amazing. One of the best cards in the game. Move 3 and disarm all adjacent enemies. Pair it with something fast, and you're going to be able to go really fast and disarm a ton of guys. You're going to be able to wade right into a bunch of enemies, and you're going to have no problems with any scenario, basically. So I'm taking Scroll of Annihilation basically every single time, and if you don't own Gloomhaven, you have to take Scroll of Annihilation so that you're not an outcast. Coming up, we've got Enhancements. But if you're liking the video so far, go ahead, hit that like button, helps me promote the video, and subscribe to my channel so that when I put out new content, you know, you can check it out. So, okay, Enhancements. The first one is Iron Bulwark. I like to put either Strengthen or Bless on here. Strengthen if you're not using goggles on the head and you're not using Reinforced Steel, where you're getting advantage every time. You can put Strengthen on the bottom. And remember, and this one's tricky, it's an aura card, but the Strengthen is not an aura. So for everyone to get the Strengthen, they've got to be there at the time you play the card, but the aura, they can move in and out for the shield. And that applies if you put a Bless on this as well. Probably I would put a Bless just because you can strengthen quite a bit with goggles and whatever else. But if you're not using goggles, you know, you can definitely put a Strengthen on here. And then we're also going to put a Bless on or Strengthen on Crushing Hammer, depending, you know, on whether you have goggles or not, like I just said. I like to put bless on it. Putting bless on a couple of these things means you can output a ton of blesses and really push your overall party damage up. Perks for the Quartermaster. I always like to start out with ignore negative item effects, because lots of the times, especially in the beginning, you're going to be in the front lines and you want armor for some damage mitigation. And then remove those negative ones. Negative ones ruin lives. I always say it in all my videos, negative ones, just get rid of them. And then I like to add in the rolling refreshes so that you can refresh a lot of your items. And after that, it's kind of up to you. I think if you're taking stuff like Catastrophic Bomb and Scroll of Blizzards or Portable Ballista and you're hitting a bunch of targets, if you just add a ton of rolling without removing a bunch of your cards, you can do really well and do a lot of different status effects, and it's pretty fun. So in this one case, most times I recommend not putting in rolling, but you can actually put in rolling with the Quartermaster and do some really cool things if you're doing lots of AoE stuff like that. Okay, let's talk about Prosperity level 1 items. Take all of them. No, I'm joking, but because the Quartermaster, is so in tune with items, right? They're so integral to playing the Quartermaster. There's a lot of items that really synergize well because you can refresh spent items, stuff like that. The first thing I'm going to recommend is that you have Eagle Eye goggles, because you want to attack with advantage all the time. It's going to reduce how often you miss, stuff like that. And then the one I think most people don't think about is winged shoes. The Quartermaster needs to be adjacent a lot, needs to position a lot, and it is so helpful to have winged shoes to make sure that you're in the right position. So I never leave home without the winged shoes. And then of course you want to take a minor stam potion, and then also the Warhammer. Pair that with Cleaving Axe early on. Stunning 3 enemies is really going to help you out a lot. Really cool combo for lower levels. Thank you so much for watching the video. Go ahead, comment down below. I love to hear people's opinions. Let me know how you played the Quartermaster and whether you loved the Quartermaster or you hated the Quartermaster.